I used to be so intimidated by sourdough. The internet makes it so much harder than it needs to be. I am not going to lie, I spent about 2 years with trying, failing, flopping, getting discouraged, quitting, and then starting up again before I finally figured it out. And once I did figure it out, I could not believe how simple it actually was. In this video, I'm going to share with you my step-by-step process and full recipe so that you can make delicious, crusty, fresh sourdough in your own home. I also have an in-depth guide that I wrote up that goes into every detail you could possibly hope for, like starter care and timeline examples. So if you really want to give this a go, and if you want to support me, then feel free to buy my guide. I will have it linked down below. So jumping right in, I always have a fed starter in my fridge. I don't like to put it in when it doesn't have enough to use for the next time. So I am ready to start mixing together my sourdough right now. I will explain some more about the starter later, but we're just gonna start mixing our loaves together. And it's super easy. Another thing is that I always make 2 loaves at once, and I actually usually make it in the same bowl. But for today's purposes, because I'm showing you how to make 1 loaf of sourdough, I'm going to just show you how to do one. Here's the recipe if you want to grab a quick screenshot. Later, I will be sharing what tools I recommend and which ones I don't think are necessary at all. But to start, you just put in 100 grams of starter. 115 actually just popped out, and I don't care because I don't think it's that fussy. Next, I'm going to be adding 375 grams of water. And then we are going to do 500 grams of, I'm using bread flour today, just a simple white loaf because it has a higher success rate. You can definitely play around with whole grains like whole wheat and rye and spelt and all those different things, but it makes a denser loaf and it makes people fail a lot more. So when you're starting out, I really recommend just using bread flour. You can use all purpose, but this is the best. So 500. Whoop, whoop. Don't forget your salt, like I almost just did, 13 grams of salt. And that is all you need, and then you just mix this up. I like using my little black spatula here just to mix it all up. I do not like using my hands at any point in the beginning because it is really sticky and annoying. And this is so easy to clean off. Who needs a KitchenAid? So what you're left with is this nice sticky little puddle of dough. And then once you get it to this point, you can cover it and let it rest. I like to use my old beeswax wraps. You can just use saran wrap, or you can also use a wet tea towel. Just kind of make it damp so it doesn't dry your dough out too much. So while this is resting, I am actually going to feed my starter because I don't like to put my starter in my fridge because it's really frustrating to want to use it and then you have to feed it and wait. In the beginning, we used to do a 1-to-1-to-1 ratio just because it's really simple, really easy. If you want to do it that way, that's fine. It works great. But now we found that we like the 1 to 3 to 4 ratio. So however much starter you have, your 1 ratio, you times it by 3 to add your amount of water, and then you times it by 4 to get the amount of flour that you need. That sounds more complicated than it actually is. So basically, we've just been feeding it a lot more flour and a little less water. I probably have about 50 grams left in this jar. And again, like I'm not going to take it out to measure it. I'm just going to assume that's how much I have in here because I'm not that picky about it. So I'm going to add 200 grams of flour and 150 water. So you can get fancy with it and buy really nice like Weck jars or whatever to hold it in. I just use our old peanut butter jars because we had them for free and whatever, it holds stuff. I will talk about all the tools that I do recommend versus the ones that I don't in just a minute, but I'm going to keep talking about the starter. So I'm actually going to leave this on my counter until it starts to bubble up and get a little happy. And then at that point, I'm going to put it in the fridge because when you put it in the fridge, that pauses it. Because what you have in here is a bunch of live microbes and they are eating the flour, they're using the water, and then their byproduct is what gives you the rising agent. People get so worked up about the starter and the fact that you have to leave it on your counter and feed it every day. That is a giant myth. It's a big misconception. We keep it in our fridge in between the times that we are using it. So I won't bake sourdough again for probably another week. So this will probably sit in there for a week. Or unless tomorrow, if I want to make waffles, I'll pull it out, use it, feed it again, put it back in the fridge. We do not have discard, and that's another thing people get get so worked up about is, oh, we need so many discard recipes and you're constantly having to use all the discard. We don't have any discard. Because again, we feed it how much we use, and then we use that until it's just a little bit left, and then we feed it to, again, how much we need to use. It's just, there is no discard. So I'm going to leave this out, let it bubble up. It'll probably get up to about here, and then I will put it into the fridge to be used next time. So after 10 minutes, we're going to give it a little bit of love again. We're just gonna give it a little stir. Just shape it a little bit again. It's going to be less sticky and more firm now, which is just what you want. Look at that. So again, I don't like using my hands because that's a sticky mess. I almost said sticky dicky, and that's just not. Fired. I'm fired from my job. Okay, so look at how good that already looks. So just work it that much until it's nice and together again, and then you cover it. And then we're going to let them sit there for another like 40 minutes. And then also, just so we know, while we're here together, enjoying each other's company, me and Billy bake the bread in this house, and we're just so both incredibly lazy and forgetful and all the bad adjectives you can think of. We often forget about our dough. Or, you know, we have 2 young kids and we'll go out for like the whole day and then come back. And so these timelines, what I'm trying to say here is they're super duper flexible. So if you forget for 3 hours to do it, that's fine. Just do the stretch and folds at that point. Or like if you do 2 and then forget for a long time, you can just do the other few, you know? It is super forgiving. My children are being very chaotic right now. So now we are going to do our stretch and folds. There's a couple different methods. So this is a stretch and fold. I will show the other method for the next time that I do the dough. So in the beginning, it's still pretty sticky. I get my hands wet before I do this. So you just stretch it out and then you kind of try to slap it down over itself, because that's how you create tension in the dough and you're helping to form the bonds of gluten. And then cover, let rest for another 10 minutes, do another one. It has been a bit of time now, so I'm going to do the next stretch and fold, slap and fold, coil fold, whatever method you prefer doing. Here we go. My hands are wet to help it be less sticky. So this is the coil fold, where you kind of scoop underneath it and then you let it stretch out like this, and then you bring it back down.
Which one was it?
So this does a more smooth and tighter dough, we've realized, so we kind of prefer doing it this way now. Oh, fancy meeting you here again. We are going to do our next fold. So I am going to do another coil fold where you just scoop it under and then kind of lay it back on itself. Doo-doo-doo. See how smooth it looks? And your hands just get less and less doughy because it's less sticky, and it's just happy to be together. So I also wanted to take a moment to talk about that whole thing when influencers will take their doughs out with them to like a restaurant or something. It is so absurd. If I had to leave for 3 hours, I would just leave them as is. Like, it's not that big of a deal. I would maybe come back and do one more stretch and fold and then shape it and then put it to bed. It's really not that picky. Here we go, the next round. So normally I just make this as one combined loaf, and then I get my bench scraper and then split it into 2. So it's even less work than this usually when I am making my bread. But because I wanted to show you how it is to make one loaf, that is why I'm doing it. But I also wanted to show you how you can make a bowl versus a loaf pan loaf. So I'm making 2, but I'm showing you how to make one. I don't know. Okay. Last one. Oh. Watch this. Not sticky at all. Now we are going to cover this until basically bedtime. So it's going to relax a little bit, keep bubbling up, and it's going to keep doing its own magic. So we don't have to think about this until we go to bed, which for us is in 5 hours. Again, super flexible time, so whatever works for you. Really quickly, going through the tools that I recommend versus the ones that I don't, because everybody wants to sell you a bunch of stuff, and there are definitely things that are very useful, and then there's just things that are fun, but I would say that they are not necessary at all. Bowls, very necessary. I would put having a scale as almost necessary. Like, unless you really know what you're doing and you can do it based off of feel, then you are going to want a scale. It also just makes it so simple because all of the recipes have exact grammage. And then because of that, every dough comes out the exact same. So it just makes it really simple and better. Banetones are another thing. They're nice to have. I wouldn't say that they are super duper necessary. I like having them and they're pretty inexpensive. They come with these little covers, but you can just use a bowl and then get like a tea towel. Make sure it is so well floured because there's nothing worse than pulling out your dough the next day and it's completely caked onto the towel and you can't use it. So that's why these are really nice. Or if you don't even want it to be in the bowl shape, you can just use a loaf pan. And a lot of people actually prefer cooking their bread in a loaf pan because it makes a better sandwich slice and it's just a lot more convenient and functional to eat bread that way. So if you don't want the banetones because you don't want to do the bowls, then you just need a loaf pan. Because if you're doing this option, you can just shape it on your counter and then you put it into this. Simple. What I keep waving around is called a lame. This I think is just for fun. Like this is not necessary at all. This is for scoring. It usually has a razor on the end of it. I just don't have it on here right now. So it's just for cutting your designs into it. You can also just use a sharp knife, or you can even just use your kitchen scissors and just cut some shapes onto the top of it to help vent. Another thing that I think is incredibly unnecessary is the Danish whisks. You can just use a normal utensil. You can use a plastic spatula or even a fork. It doesn't have to be a special expensive tool. But if you do want to make a bowl, then you're going to need a Dutch oven of some sort. I really like cast iron. I just have this one from Lodge, and I mean, we use it to cook our soups and stews in anyways. And yeah, this one just has a skillet on the top as it's lit, so it's double convenient. We also have this silicone, what's it called? Sling thing that, I don't know, it's pretty convenient. We got really tired of cutting handles into parchment paper every single time we wanted to do it. So we just reuse this all the time. So when you're baking your bowls in your Dutch oven, you put this underneath and then you can lift it out at the end. Because you use this to transfer your rising dough from overnight into your hot Dutch oven. You'll see it later. It is 9:30 at night. It has been the world's longest day, but we still have to shape our dough. Not gonna lie, this is one of the suckiest parts about making sourdough. First of all, look at how much this has grown. So now that it's this happy, I'm going to put it in my fridge. So now, I'm gonna roll up my sleeves to pass you off to my husband.
No, you can do one, I'll do the other.
Not gonna lie, truth be told, Billy makes most of the sourdough in this house. I can do the whole process from beginning to end. I have done it many times. The part that I suck at the most is the shaping. And again, I can do it. It's just not as beautiful as he can. God, my brain is fried. So I want him to show you how to do it so then you can see the proper technique, because again, I can do it. It's functional. It's just not the best. So here he is.
Let's see how much they run.
Oh, beautiful. Taking a moment to explain that usually, again, I will make all of this in one go. So in one bowl, we will add all of these ingredients, do the same exact process, but then at this point here, you would dump out everything and then cut it into two. And then it's the same exact process from here. I can't tell you the science of why it is so satisfying to watch dough fall out of a bowl, but here we all are. We used to do flour on the counter, but we actually discovered that rubbing a little bit of oil makes it even nicer. And then, of course, because it's sourdough, they came up with 1,000 different variations of how exactly you can fold it. I'm going to tell you something. It doesn't matter. I have flopped it directly into a pan before and cooked it, and guess what? It turned out. So please don't get too worked up about this. Whenever I do the shaping, I'm freaking out the whole time and squealing, and it's a mess. But again, it turns out into delicious bread. All right, here we go. So we like to make two at once just because it saves time, effort, energy. We'll freeze one of the loaves because you can unfreeze a fresh sourdough loaf beautifully. So we'll eat one up, and it takes us almost a week to eat it. Well, a couple to 3 days maybe. Okay, so this little technique here is a little bit of scooping to shape it.
Just grabbing it under the dough and rolling it on itself.
I just flop it around a counter, call it a day. So rice flour does not have gluten in it. Because it doesn't have gluten in it, it doesn't stick. So we like to coat our banetone with some rice flour. And again, if you don't have a banetone, just use a tea towel. Coat it like you would not believe with flour. Okay, we actually are trying for science, which is not a great time to do when I'm trying to do this video. But we are going to try a second shaping in just a little bit. All right, let's finish this. I'm ready for the bed. Okay, and then lift. And oh, okay, so you just kind of pinch it all over.
Into the middle.
Make it tighter. Pinch it towards the middle.
Mine's a bit wetter. That's good enough.
Cover with some rice flour.
Just want to make sure it's not sticking.
So then you cover them again and you put them in the fridge and bake them tomorrow morning. Ta-da! Nice and slow and gentle. Oh, oh, oh. All right, good morning. It's the next morning. Now we're going to bake our beautiful loaves of bread because they are so beautiful. So this one, super amazing, is already ready to go. You just have to, what's that called? Score it. I am going to get the lid of my Dutch oven, get my silicone sling. If you don't have this, just use parchment paper. You flop it on top like this, huh? And then you do it upside down. Here we go. Da 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 da. So now we're done with our banetone, our basket. Okay, so I'm going to show two different techniques with two different things. This is going to be very, it's fine. This is just so that the bread can breathe. Because if you don't, it's also technically fine. It'll just burst it open and make it not as nice. So there's some scissors, and then I will also just show you with a little paring knife or a razor.
Yeah, good razor.
And again, you can get the fancy lame with the razor on it to like make beautiful designs. Okay, turn the oven on to 475. We're doing this together. Another thing the internet will tell you very firmly is that you have to preheat your Dutch oven, and we've actually tested it out for ourselves several times and we haven't noticed a significant difference. So don't freak out about it too much one way or the other. I go to the gym just so I can bake sourdough and cast iron. So those are going to sit in there for 20 minutes. I'm going to set a timer, and then I'm going to take the lid off of the Dutch oven, and then they're going to bake for another approximately 25 minutes until they're super crusty and beautiful. The loaf one will not take as long, so keep an eye out for that. All right, so we actually have like 4 minutes left, but I just checked my bread loaf pan and she's done. Oh, she's very done. Look at that. Oh, my face is melting off. Okay. Our oven is a little weird, which is why I baked so unevenly, but this is so beautiful. I'm going to rub a little bit of butter on the top. So this gets so crusty and flaky like this because it's contained and the steam from the dough kind of steams it a little bit. But adding a little bit of butter on the top makes it a little bit softer, and it just turns out so delicious once this soaks into it. I can't even wait. I don't know how anybody manages with oven mitts. Oh my gosh. See, it's so funny. This end is perfect. The other one's a little crispy. That's okay. And then here's the other one. And this one's perfect. Look at the bottom.
Oh, yeah.
Like I said, we'll freeze one of these once they cool off a little bit. And then when we want to, we pull it out of the freezer. You can throw it in the oven for like 15 minutes and it gets really crispy again. Or you can just set it on the counter and let it thaw, whatever works better for you. So you definitely want to wait like 15 minutes until it cools off, because otherwise it's still kind of doughy. Like it's still going through a bit of a cooking process right now, getting rid of a lot of the excess moisture that's inside of it. You have to wait a little bit. I know it's really hard. So we'll let this cool off and then we'll cut it up later. Oh. I am going to show you the proper way to cut a bole. So cut it in half first of all, which is the hardest part, and then you put it flat like this, and then you slice down straight. This just means that you're cutting and you're not like mashing it, because if you do it that, it mashes the bread, which is not as nice. It means that you can get nicer, more even slices. This is even still, I would recommend waiting until it's not even this warm, but I cannot help myself. Okay, we are going to actually sit down and eat some of our delicious bread. We have hummus. I would have done avocado, but we don't have any. So hummus, tomato with hot honey on it, and then a crispy fried feta egg. Incredible. If you are interested in my guide, again, it has all of the troubleshooting. It has so much information in it that I am actually proud of it. And it's just one of those things where like so many people have come to me and said that they have been able to figure out how to bake sourdough. To be so incredibly frustrated by making sourdough for so long, and then to be able to help people actually figure out how to do it is very satisfying. So if you want to learn how to do it, if this still feels overwhelming to you, I recommend going and getting that. We are going to eat this now. I will also definitely have another slice with butter and jam on it because I am a child and I need it every single time. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.